everyone, welcome back to our chapter book read-along. We are reading Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan, and we are reading the really awesome illustrated copy, illustrated by John Rocco. So, we have come pretty far in our story, and I want you to take a moment, if you're watching this with someone, to pause the video and talk about some of the things that you remembered, some important things that have happened in our story, your favorite characters. Just go around and say something real quick. Then, here comes my quick review. I'm going to get all the main points as fast as I can. Are you ready? Percy Jackson is our main character. At the beginning of the story, he gets into some trouble with his teacher on a field trip. Her name is Mrs. Dodds, and she turns out to be a terrifying monster. She grows talons. She has giant wings. She has glowing red eyes. Percy thinks he's about to get torn to shreds, but his other teacher, Mr. Brunner, tosses him a sword, and Percy slashes Mrs. Dodds into dust. Percy and his best friend Grover go to New York City. In New York City, we meet Percy's mom, Sally Jackson. She is awesome. Her husband, Percy's stepfather, is not so awesome. His name is Smelly Gabe. Ugh. Well, Percy and his mother go to the beach to celebrate Percy being done with school, and there, Grover catches up with them. And Grover doesn't look like a normal kid. He is a satyr, which means he has goat legs and horns. Percy, his mother, and Grover race to Camp Half-Blood because Grover tells them they are in grave danger. There are monsters after them. And the monster that is trying to stop them is the Minotaur. He is a half-bull, half-man, huge, terrifying monster. He catches up with them, grabs Percy's mom, and she disappears in a gold dust. Percy ends up defeating the Minotaur, and he and Grover make it safely across the borders to camp. At camp, Percy meets a few different people. First, his teacher, Mr. Brunner, isn't really named Mr. Brunner. His name is Kyrian, and he is a centaur, which means top half of a man, back half is a horse. He is the activities director at Camp Half-Blood. The director is Dionysus, the god of wine. Percy learns that Camp Half-Blood is for demigods, which means children whose parents are a mortal, a regular person, and a Greek god. Yes, a Greek god. So these kids have special kind of powers and traits that come along with their Greek parent. And usually the parents claim the kids and they stay in the cabins that go with their parent. But those who do not get claimed stay in the Hermes cabin. Percy also meets a few new friends. Luke, who lives in the Hermes cabin, and Annabeth, who is in the Athena cabin. He meets some not so friends either. One is Clarice and her siblings from the Aries cabin. At one point, they play Capture the Flag, and Percy gets kind of ganged up by the Aries cabin, trying to look for some revenge after being splashed with toilet water. But Percy does defeat all of them, and he is claimed by his father, the Greek god of the sea, Poseidon. Then Percy gets offered a quest. Turns out that Zeus's master bolt is missing. They believe that Hades stole it, but Zeus is blaming Poseidon, and it could cause a huge war. So Percy, Annabeth, and Grover go on a quest to the underworld. The underworld is all the way on the other side of the country. They're in New York, it's in California, LA. And they have to go and retrieve this master bolt. Now, they get their quest started by going on a bus in New York City, but the last passengers onto the bus are the three Furies. That is the monster that Mrs. Dodds is. She brought her two sisters with her, and they attacked Annabeth, Percy, and Grover on the bus. They escape, but the bus gets struck by lightning and explodes. So there goes their way across country. Then they go to Auntie M's Gnome Emporium. Turns out that all of these stone statues were made statues by the monster Medusa. She is terrifying. If you look in her eyes, you turn to stone. Her hair is poisonous snakes, and she is very quick. Well, luckily, with a little teamwork, the three defeat Medusa and then catch a train to Denver. They don't have enough money to make it to LA yet. We'll see what happens. But they get a little pit stop in St. Louis. And Annabeth loves architecture, so she wants to go see the Arch. When they're in the Arch, they get attacked by the Chimera. Whew, this is a scary monster that has the head of a lion, he breathes fire, and his tail is a poisonous snake. Well, Percy gets bit by the snake and literally falls out of the arch in an explosion that the Chimera shot through the wall of the St. Louis Arch. Ooh. Percy falls down into the river, but luckily he is the son of the sea god. He can breathe underwater, and it heals him right away. He gets a message from his father through a sea kind of spirit. I don't know. We'll see who that is. To go to Santa Monica. Well, they barely get out of St. Louis, but they just make it to get onto their train to head to Denver. And that is where our story is going to continue. Let's see what happens next to Percy, Annabeth, and Grover in The Lightning Thief. Enjoy! Chapter 15. A God Buys Us Cheeseburgers. The next afternoon, June 14th, 7 days before the solstice, our train rolled into Denver. We hadn't eaten since the night before in the dining car, somewhere in Kansas. We hadn't taken a shower since Half-Blood Hill, and I was sure that was obvious. "Let's try to contact Kyrian," Annabeth said. "I want to tell him about your talk with the river spirit." "We can't use phones, right?" "I'm not talking about phones." We wandered through downtown for about half an hour, though I wasn't sure what Annabeth was looking for. The air was dry and hot, which felt weird after the humidity of St. Louis. Everywhere we turned, the Rocky Mountains seemed to be staring at me, like a tidal wave about to crash into the city. Finally, we found an empty, do-it-yourself car wash. We veered toward the stall furthest from the street, keeping our eyes open for patrol cars. We were 3 adolescents hanging out at a car wash without a car. Any cop worth his donuts would figure out we were up to no good. "What exactly are we doing?" I asked, as Grover took out the spray gun. "It's 75 cents, he grumbled. "I've only got 2 quarters left. Annabeth?" "Don't look at me," she said. "The dining car wiped me out." I fished out my last bit of change and passed Grover a quarter, which left me 2 nickels and 1 drachma from Medusa's place. "Excellent," Grover said. "We could do it with a spray bottle, of course, but the connection isn't as good and my arm gets tired of pumping." "What are you talking about?" He fed the quarters and set the knob to find mist. "IMing." "Instant messaging?" "Iris messaging," Annabeth corrected. "The rainbow goddess, Iris, carries messages for the gods, if you know how to ask, and she's not too busy. She'll do it for the half-bloods, too." "You summon the goddess with a spray gun?" Grover pointed the nozzle in the air, and water hissed out in a thick white mist. "Unless you know an easier way to make a rainbow." Sure enough, late afternoon light filtered through the vapor and broke into colors. Annabeth held her palm out to me. "Drachma, please." I handed it over. She raised the coin over her head. "Oh, goddess, accept our offering." She threw the drachma into the rainbow. It disappeared in a gold shimmer. "Half-Blood Hill," Annabeth requested. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I was looking through the mist at strawberry fields and the Long Island Sound and the distance. We seemed to be on the porch of the big house. Standing with his back to us at the railing was a sandy-haired guy in shorts and an orange tank top. He was holding a bronze sword and seemed to be staring intently at something down the meadow. "Luke!" I called. He turned, eyes wide. I could swear he was standing 3 feet in front of me through a screen of mist, except I could only see part of him that appeared in the rainbow. "Percy!" His scarred face broke into a grin. "Is that Annabeth too? Thank the gods. Are you okay?" "We're, fine," Annabeth stammered. She was madly straightening her dirty t-shirt, trying to comb the loose hair out of her face. "We thought He's down at the cabins." Luke's smile faded. "We're having some issues with the campers. Listen, is everything cool with you? Is Grover all right?" "I'm right here," Grover called. He held the nozzle out to the one side and stepped into Luke's line of vision. "What kind of issues?" Just then, a big Lincoln Continental pulled into the car wash with its stereo turned to maximum hip-hop. As the car slid into the next stall, the bass from the subwoofers vibrated so much it shook the pavement. Kirian had to, "What's that noise?" Luke yelled. "I'll take care of it," Annabeth yelled back, looking very relieved to have an excuse to get out of sight. "Grover, come on." "What?" Grover said. "But give Percy the nozzle and come on," she ordered. Grover muttered something about girls being harder to understand than the Oracle of Delphi. Then he handed me the spray gun and followed Annabeth. I readjusted the hose so I could keep the rainbow going and still see Luke. Kirian had to break up a fight. Luke shouted to me over the music. "Things are pretty tense here, Percy. Word leaked out that Zeus, Poseidon standoff. We're still not sure how. Probably the same scumbag who summoned the Hellhound. Now, the campers are starting to take sides. It's shaping up like Trojan War all over again. Aphrodite, Aries, and Apollo are backing Poseidon. More or less, Athena is backing Zeus." I shuddered to think that Clarice's cabin would ever be on my dad's side for anything. In the next stall, I heard Annabeth and some guy arguing with each other, and the music's volume decreased drastically. "So what's your status?" Luke asked me. "Kirian will be sorry he missed you." I told him pretty much everything, including my dreams. It felt good to see him, to feel like I was back at camp, even for a few minutes, that I didn't realize how long I'd talked until the beeper went off on the spray machine, and I realized I only had 1 more minute before the water shut off. "Wish I could be there," Luke told me. "We can't out much from here, I'm afraid. But listen, it has to be Hades who took the Master Bolt. He was there at Olympus at the winter solstice. I was chaperoning a field trip and we saw him." "But Kirian said the gods can't take each other's magic items directly." "That's true," Luke said, looking troubled. "Still, Hades has the Helm of Darkness. How could anybody else sneak into the throne room and steal the Master Bolt? You'd have to be invisible." We were both silent, until Luke seemed to realize what he said. "Oh, hey," he protested. "I didn't mean Annabeth. She and I have known each other forever. She would never... she's like a little sister to me." I wondered if Annabeth would like that description. In the stall next to us, the music stopped completely. A man screamed in terror, car doors slammed, and the Lincoln peeled out of the car wash. "You better go see what that was," Luke said. "Listen, are you wearing the flying shoes? I feel better if I know they've done some good." "Oh, yeah." I tried not to sound like a guilty liar. "Yeah, they've really come in handy." "Really?" He grinned. "They fit in everything." The water shut off. The mist started to evaporate. "Well, take care of yourself out there in Denver," Luke called, his voice getting fainter. "And tell Grover it'll be better this time. Nobody will get turned into a pine tree if he just..." But the mist was gone, and Luke's image faded to nothing. I was alone in a wet, empty car wash stall. Annabeth and Grover came around the corner, laughing, but stopped when they saw my face. Annabeth's smile faded. "What happened, Percy? What did Luke say?" "Not much," I lied. My stomach feeling as empty as the Big 3 cabin. "Come on, let's find some dinner." A few minutes later, we were sitting in a booth of a gleaming chrome diner. All around us, families were eating burgers and drinking malts and sodas. Finally, the waitress came over. She raised her eyebrows skeptically. "Well?" I said, "We, want to order dinner." "You kids got money to pay for it?" Grover's lower lip quivered. I was afraid he'd start bleating, or worse, start eating the linoleum. Annabeth looked ready to pass out from hunger. I was trying to think up a sob story for the waitress when a rumble shook the whole building. A motorcycle the size of a baby elephant had pulled up to the curb. All conversations in the diner stopped. The motorcycle's headlight glared red. Its gas tank had flames painted on it, and a shotgun holster riveted on either side, complete with shotguns. The seat was leather, but leather that looked like, well, Caucasian human skin. The guy on the bike would have made pro wrestlers run for mama. He was dressed in a red muscle shirt and black jeans and a black leather duster, with a hunting knife strapped to his thigh. He wore red wraparound shades, and he had the cruelest, most brutal face I'd ever seen. Handsome, I guess, but wicked, with an oily black crew cut and cheeks that were scarred from many, many fights. The weird thing was, I'd felt I'd seen his face somewhere before. As he walked into the diner, a hot, dry wind blew through the place. All the people rose, as if they were hypnotized, but the biker waved his hand dismissively, and they all sat down again. Everybody went back to their conversations. The waitress blinked, as if somebody had pressed the rewind button on her brain. She asked again, "You kids have money to pay for it?" The biker said, "It's on me." And he slid onto our booth, which was way too small for him, and crowded Annabeth against the window. He looked up at the waitress, who was gaping at him, and said, "Are you still here?" He pointed at her, and she stiffened. She turned as if she had been spun around, then marched back toward the kitchen. The biker looked at me. I couldn't see his eyes behind the red shades, but bad feelings started boiling in my stomach. Anger, resentment, bitterness. I wanted to hit a wall. I wanted to pick a fight with somebody. Who did this guy think he was? He gave me a wicked grin. "So you're old Seaweed's kid, huh?" I should have been surprised, or scared, but instead I felt like I was looking at my stepdad, Gabe. I wanted to rip this guy's head off. "What's it to you?" Annabeth's eyes flashed me a warning. "Percy, this is..." The biker raised his hand. "It's okay," he said. "Don't mind a little attitude, long as you remember who's the boss. You know who I am, little cousin?" Then it struck me why this guy looked familiar. He had the same vicious sneer as some of the kids at Camp Half-Blood, the ones from Cabin 5. "You're Clarice's dad," I said. "Aries, god of war." Aries grinned and took off his shades. Where his eyes should have been, there was only fire, empty sockets glowing with miniature nuclear explosions. "That's right, punk. I heard you broke Clarice's spear." "She was asking for it," I said. "Probably. That's cool. I don't fight my kids' fights, you know. What I'm here for, I heard you were in town. I got a little proposition for you." The waitress came back with heaping trays of food. Cheeseburgers, fries, onion rings, and chocolate shakes. Aries handed her a few gold drachmas. She looked nervously at the coins. "But these aren't..." Aries pulled out his huge knife and started cleaning his fingernails. "Problem, sweetheart?" The waitress swallowed, then left with the gold. "You can't do that," I told Aries. "You can't just threaten people with a knife." Aries laughed. "Are you kidding? I love this country. Best place since Sparta. Don't you carry a weapon, punk? You should. Dangerous world out there. Which brings me to my proposition. I need you to do me a favor." "What favor could I do for a god?" "Something a god doesn't have time to do himself. It's nothing much. I left my shield at an abandoned water park here in town. I was going on a little, date with my girlfriend. We were interrupted. I left my shield behind. I want you to fetch it for me." "Why don't you go back and get it yourself?" The fire in his eye sockets glowed a little hotter. "Why don't I turn you into a prairie dog and run you over with my Harley? Because I don't feel like it. A god is giving you an opportunity to prove yourself, Percy Jackson. Will you prove yourself a coward?" He leaned forward. "Or maybe you only fight when there's a river to dive into, so your daddy can protect you." I wanted to punch this guy, but somehow I knew he was waiting for that. Aries' power was causing my anger. He'd love it if I attacked. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. We're not interested, I said. We've already got a quest. Aries' fiery eyes made me see things I didn't want to see. Blood and smoke and corpses on the battlefield. I know all about your quest, punk. When that item was first stolen, Zeus sent his best out looking for it. Apollo, Athena, Artemis, and me, naturally. If I couldn't sniff out a weapon that powerful. He licked his lips, as if the very thought of the master bolt made him hungry. Well, if I couldn't find it, you've got no hope. Nevertheless, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Your dad and I go way back. After all, I'm the one who told him my suspicions about old corpse breath. You told him Hades stole the bolt? Sure, framing somebody to start a war. Oldest trick in the book. I recognized it immediately. In a way, you've got me to thank for your little quest. Thanks? I grumbled. Hey, I'm a generous guy. Just do my little job, and I'll help you on your way. I'll arrange a ride west for you and your friends. We're doing fine on our own. Yeah, right. No money, no wheels, no clue what you're up against. Help me out. Maybe I'll tell you something you need to know. Something about your mom. My mom? He grinned. That got your attention. The water park is a mile west on Declancy. You can't miss it. Look for the Tunnel of Love ride. What interrupted your date? I asked. Something scare you off? Aries bared his teeth, but I'd seen his threatening look before on Clarice. There was something false about it, almost like he was nervous. You're lucky you met me, punk, and not some of the other Olympians. They're not as forgiving of rudeness as I am. I'll meet you back here when you're done. Don't disappoint me. After that, I must have fainted or fallen into a trance because when I opened my eyes again, Aries was gone. I might have thought the conversation had been a dream, but Annabeth and Grover's expressions told me otherwise. Not good, Grover said. Aries sought you out, Percy. This is not good. I stared out the window. The motorcycle had disappeared. Did Aries really know something about my mom, or was he just playing with me? Now that he was gone, all that anger had drained out of me. I realized Aries must love to mess with people's emotions. That was his power. Cranking up the passion so badly, they clouded your ability to think. It's probably some kind of trick, I said. Forget Aries. Let's just go. We can't, Annabeth said. Look, I hate Aries as much as anybody, but you don't just ignore the gods unless you want serious bad fortune. He wasn't kidding about turning you into a rodent. I looked down at my cheeseburger, which suddenly didn't seem so appetizing. Why does he need us? Maybe it's a problem that requires brains, Annabeth said. Aries has strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. But this water park, he acted almost scared. What would make a war god run away like that? Annabeth and Grover glanced nervously at each other. Annabeth said, I'm afraid we'll have to find out. The sun was sinking behind the mountains by the time we found the water park. Judging from the sign, it had once been called Waterland, but now some of the letters were smashed out, so it read, Wat Rad. The main gate was padlocked and topped with barbed wire. Inside, huge dry water slides and tubes and pipes curled everywhere, leading to empty pools. Old tickets and advertisements fluttered around on the asphalt. With night coming on, the place looked sad and creepy. If Aries brings his girlfriend here for a date, I said, staring at the barbed wire, I'd hate to see what she looks like. Percy, Annabeth warned, be more respectful. Why? I thought you hated Aries. He's still a god, and his girlfriend is very temperamental. You don't want to insult her looks, Grover added. Who is she? Echidna? No, Aphrodite, Grover said, a little dreamily. Goddess of love. I thought she was married to somebody, I said. Hephaestus. And your point? He asked. Oh, I suddenly felt the need to change the subject. So how do we get in? Maya! Grover's shoes sprouted wings. He flew over the fence, did an unintended somersault in midair, then stumbled onto the landing on the opposite side. He dusted off his jeans as if he'd planned the whole thing. You guys coming? Annabeth and I had to climb the old-fashioned way, holding down the barbed wire for each other as we crawled over the top. The shadows grew long as we walked through the park, checking out the attractions. There was Ankle Biter Island, Head Over Wedgie, and Dude, Where's My Swimsuit? No monsters came to get us. Nothing made the slightest noise. We found a souvenir shop that had been left open. Merchandise still lined the shelves. Snow globes, pencils, postcards, and racks of clothes, Annabeth said. Fresh clothes. Yeah, I said, but you can't just watch me. She snatched an entire row of stuff off the racks and disappeared into a changing room. A few minutes later, she came out in Waterland flower print shorts, a big red Waterland t-shirt, and commemorative Waterland surf shoes. A Waterland backpack was slung over her shoulder, obviously stuffed with more goodies. What the heck? Grover shrugged. Soon, all three of us were decked out like walking advertisements for the defunct theme park. We continued searching for the Tunnel of Love. I got the feeling that the whole park was holding its breath. So, Aries and Aphrodite? I said, to keep my mind off the growing dark. They have a thing going? That's old gossip, Percy, Annabeth told me. 3,000-year-old gossip? What about Aphrodite's husband? Well, you know, she said, Hephaestus, the blacksmith. He was crippled when he was a baby, thrown off Mount Olympus by Zeus. So he isn't exactly handsome. Clever with his hands and all, but Aphrodite isn't into brains and talents, you know. She likes bikers. Whatever. Hephaestus knows. Oh, sure, Annabeth said. He's caught them together once. Literally caught them in a gold net and invited all the gods to come and laugh at them. Hephaestus is always trying to embarrass them. That's why they meet in out-of-the-way places like... She stopped, looking straight ahead. Like that. In front of us was an empty pool that would have been awesome for skateboarding. It was at least 50 yards across and shaped like a bowl. Around the rim, a dozen bronze statues of Cupid stood guard with wings spread and bows ready to fire. On the opposite side from us, a tunnel opened up, probably where the water flowed into when the pool was full. The sign above it read, Thrill Ride of Love. This is not your parents' tunnel of love. Grover crept toward the edge. Guys, look! Marooned at the bottom of the pool was a pink and white two-seater boat with a canopy over the top and little hearts painted all over it. In the left seat, glinting in the fading light, was Aries' shield, a polished circle of bronze. This is too easy, I said. So we just walk down there and get it? Annabeth ran her fingers along the base of the nearest Cupid statue. There's a Greek carved letter here, she said. Edda, I wonder... Grover, you smell any monsters? I said. He sniffed the wind. Nothing. Nothing like in the arch and you didn't smell and she did nothing or really nothing. Grover looked hurt. I told you, that was underground. Okay, I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. I'm going down there. I'll go with you. Grover didn't sound enthusiastic, but I got the feeling he was trying to make up for what happened in St. Louis. No, I told him. I want you to stay up top with the flying shoes. You're the Red Baron, a flying ace, remember? I'll be counting on you for backup, in case something goes wrong. Grover puffed out his chest a little. Sure, but what could go wrong? I don't know, just a feeling. Annabeth, come with me. Are you kidding? She looked at me as if I'd just dropped from the moon. Her cheeks were bright red. What's the problem now? I demanded. Me go with you to the thrill ride of love? How embarrassing is that? What if somebody saw me? Who's going to see you? But my face was burning now too. Leave it to a girl to make everything complicated. Fine, I told her. I'll do it myself. But then I started down the side of the pool. She followed me. muttering about how boys always mess things up. We reached the boat. The shield was propped on one seat. Next to it was a lady's silk scarf. I tried to imagine Aries and Aphrodite here, a couple of gods meeting in this junked-out amusement park ride. Why? Then I noticed something I hadn't seen from the top. Mirrors all the way around the rim of the pool, facing this spot. We could see ourselves no matter which direction we looked. That must be it. While Aries and Aphrodite were smooching with each other, they could look at their favorite people, themselves. I picked up the scarf. It shimmered pink, and the perfume was indescribable. Rose or mountain laurel, something good. I smiled, a little dreamily, and was about to rub the scarf against my cheek when Annabeth ripped it out of my hand and stuffed it into her pocket. "Oh, no, you don't. Stay away from that love magic." "What?" "Just get the shield, seaweed brain, and let's get out of here." The moment I touched the shield, I knew we were in trouble. My hand broke through something that had been connecting it to the dashboard. A cobweb? I thought, but then I looked at the strand of it in my palm and saw it was some kind of metal filament, so fine it was almost invisible. A tripwire. "Wait," Annabeth said. "Too late. There's another Greek letter on the side of the boat. Another Eta. This is a trap." Noise erupted all around us, of a million gears grinding as the whole pool was turning into one giant machine. Grover yelled, "Guys!" Up on the rim, the Cupid statues were drawing their bows into firing position. Before I could suggest taking cover, they shot, but not at us. They fired at each other, across the rim of the pool. Silky cables trailed from the arrows, arching over the top of the pool. Then the smaller metallic threads started weaving together magically between the main strands, making a net. "We have to get out," I said. "Duh!" Annabeth said. I grabbed the shield and we ran. But going up the slope of the pool was not as easy as going down. "Come on!" Grover shouted. He was trying to hold open a section of the net for us, but whenever he touched it, the golden thread started to wrap around his hands. The Cupids' heads popped open. Out came video cameras. Spotlights rose up all around the pool, blinding us with illumination. And the loudspeaker voice boomed, "Live to Olympus in 1 minute, 59 seconds, 58. "Hephaestus!" Annabeth screamed. "I'm so stupid. Eta is H. He made this trap to catch his wife with Aries. Now we're going to be broadcast live to Olympus and look like absolute fools." We almost made it to the rim when the row of mirrors opened like hatches and thousands of metallic things poured out. Annabeth screamed. It was an army of wind-up, creepy crawlies, bronze gear bodies, spindly legs like little pincer mouths, all scuttling toward us in a wave of crackling, whirling metal. "Spiders!" Annabeth said. Ah! I'd never seen her like this before. She fell backwards in terror and almost got overwhelmed by the spider robots before I pulled her up and dragged her back toward the boat. The things were coming out from all around the rim now, millions of them, flooding toward the center of the pool, completely surrounding us. I told myself they probably weren't programmed to kill, just corral and bite us and make us look stupid. Then again, this was a trap meant for gods, and we weren't gods. Annabeth and I climbed onto the boat. I started kicking away the spiders as they swarmed aboard. I yelled at Annabeth to help me, but she was too paralyzed to do much more than scream. 30, 29, called the loudspeaker. The spiders started spitting out strands of metal thread, trying to tie us down. The strands were easy enough to break at first, but there were so many of them, and the spiders just kept coming. I kicked one away from Annabeth's leg, as its pincers took a chunk out of my new surf shoe. Grover hovered above the pool in his flying sneakers, trying to pull the net loose, but it wouldn't budge. "Think," I told myself. "Think." The Tunnel of Love entrance was under the net. We could use it as an exit, except that it was blocked by a million robot spiders. 15, 14, the loudspeaker called. Water, I thought. Where does the ride's water come from? Then I saw them. Huge water pipes behind the mirrors, where the spiders had come from. And up above the net, next to the cupids, a glass-windowed booth that must be the controller station. "Grover!" I yelled. "Get to that booth! Find the on switch!" "But do it!" It was a crazy hope, but it was our only chance. The spiders were all over the prow of the boat now. Annabeth was screaming her head off, and I had to get us out of there. Grover was in the control booth now, slamming away at the buttons. 5, 4. Grover looked at me hopelessly, raising his hands. He was letting me know that he had pushed every button, and still nothing was happening. I closed my eyes and thought about the waves, rushing water, the Mississippi River. I felt a familiar tug in my gut. I tried to imagine that I was dragging the ocean all the way to Denver. 2, 1, 0. Water exploded out of the pipes. It roared into the pool, sweeping away the spiders. I pulled Annabeth into the seat next to me and fastened her seatbelt just as the tidal wave slammed into our boat, over the top, whisking the spiders away and dousing us completely, but not capsizing us. The boat turned, lifted in the flood, and spun in circles around the whirlpool. The water was full of short-circuiting spiders. Some of them smashed against the pool's concrete wall with such force they burst. Spotlights glared down on us. The Cupid cams were rolling, live to Olympus. But I could only concentrate on controlling the boat. I willed it to ride the current, to keep away from the wall. Maybe it was my imagination, but the boat seemed to respond. At least, it didn't break into a million pieces. We spun around one last time, the water level now almost high enough to shred us against the metal net. Then the boat's nose turned toward the tunnel, and we rocketed through into the darkness. Annabeth and I held tight, both of us screaming as the boat shot curls and hugged corners and took 45-degree plunges past pictures of Romeo and Juliet and a bunch of other Valentine's Day stuff. Then we were out of the tunnel, and the night air whistling through our hair as the boat barreled straight toward the exit. If the ride had been in working order, we would have sailed off a ramp between the Golden Gates of Love and splashed down safely at the exit pool. But there was a problem. The Gates of Love were chained. 2 boats had been washed out of the tunnel before us and were now piled against it as a barricade. One submerged, the other cracked in half. "Unfasten your seatbelt!" I yelled at Annabeth. "Are you crazy?" "Unless you want to get smashed to death." I strapped Aries' shield to my arm. "We're going to have to jump for it." My idea was simple and insane. As the boat struck, we would use the force like a springboard to jump the gate. I'd heard of people surviving car crashes that way, getting thrown 30 or 40 feet from the accident. With luck, we would land in the pool. Annabeth seemed to understand. She gripped my hand as the gates got closer. "On my mark," I said. "No, on my mark." "What?" "Simple physics," she yelled. "Force times the trajectory angle." "Fine," I shouted. "On your mark." She hesitated, then yelled, "Now!" Crack! Annabeth was right. If we jumped when I thought we should have, we would have crashed into the gates. She got us maximum lift. Unfortunately, that was a little more than we needed. Our boat smashed into the pileup, and we were thrown into the air, straight over the gates, over the pool, and down toward the solid asphalt. Something grabbed me from behind. Annabeth yelled, "Ouch!" Grover! In midair, he had grabbed me by the shirt and Annabeth by the arm, and was trying to pull us out of a crash landing. But Annabeth and I had all the momentum. "You're too heavy," Grover said. "We're going down." We spiraled toward the ground, Grover doing his best to slow the fall. We smashed into a photo board, Grover's head going straight into the hole where tourists would put their faces, pretending to be No-No, the friendly whale. Annabeth and I tumbled to the ground, banged up, but alive. Aries' shield was still on my arm. Once we caught our breath, Annabeth and I got Grover out of the photo board and thanked him for saving our lives. I looked back at the thrill ride of love. The water was subsiding. Our boat had been smashed to pieces against the gates. 100 yards away at the entrance pool, the Cupids were still filming. The statues had swiveled so that their cameras were trained straight on us, the spotlight on our faces. "Show's over," I yelled. "Thank you. Good night." The Cupids turned back to their original positions. The lights shut off. The park went quiet and dark again, except for the gentle trickle of water into the thrill ride of love's exit pool. I wonder if Olympus had gone to a commercial break, or if our ratings had been any good. I hated being teased. I hated being tricked, and I had plenty of experience handling bullies who liked to do stuff to me. I hefted the shield on my arm and turned to my friends. We need to have a little talk with Aries. Well, that was quite a little adventure they went on. I don't think Percy likes the god of war very much. So, let's look at our map where our heroes have finally made it. They started over here in New York at Camp Half-Blood, went to New York City, then there's Auntie M's Gnome Emporium. They made it all the way to St. Louis, where they blew a hole in the side of the arch, and then to Denver. And on our little map is Waterland, where they had to do this quest for Aries. They still have a bit of a ways to go, but at least they've made it to Colorado. They're getting there. Let's discuss what happened in this chapter. Chapter 15 is called A God Buys Us Cheeseburgers. Yes, it does, doesn't it? What is iris messaging? And how does it work? So iris messaging was it's like a video call. So it looked like a Zoom. Instead of using a phone or a computer, they used a rainbow. So the goddess of rainbow is named Iris, and she will transfer your messages to people through mist of a rainbow. Pretty cool. They just have to toss in a drachma, which is an Olympian coin. All right. So, what happens when they reach Denver after they've made their iris message? Who meets them at the diner? Who meets them there? The god of war. His name is Aries. Pretty scary looking dude. Very tough looking. So what does Aries ask of our heroes? He asks them to go get his shield. He left it somewhere and he needs some help getting it. Percy wasn't convinced right away, was he? But what did Aries say to convince him to go and get his shield? Aries has some information about Percy's mom. So, we'll see how that turns out. Once they get to Waterland, what happens? What happened? So they found the shield pretty easily, didn't they? Down there in that boat, in the thrill ride of love. But something occurs pretty quickly. So, once they go in there, a net descends across the top of them, and they're trapped. Then they have to escape these metal spiders. Ugh, gross. Why is Annabeth pretty much no help once those spiders show up? She is deathly afraid of them. So very scared. Percy was very confused because he's never seen her like that. She's usually very brave. And what happens at the end? Annabeth uses her knowledge of something to get them out of it, right? It's called physics, which means she literally made the calculation in her head about when to jump so that they could get over the top of this gate. It's a lot of math and science in your head really quick. So Percy is lucky he has a very smart friend. How does Grover, in the end, save the day? So they jump over this gate, but they're literally falling onto cement. What does Grover have on his feet? He has shoes with little wings, right? So he catches them, and yeah, they get a little scraped up, but at least they did not fall face flat onto cement. He saved them. And lastly, Aries gives that information about Percy's mom. What does he say? That she is not really dead. That gives Percy a lot of hope. We'll see what happens next in our next chapter of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. We will see you next time. Bye, everyone!